Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. So what I have for you guys today is a video that I actually promised to do quite a while ago for you guys, but I'm finally getting around to doing it now, guys. So what this is going to be my predictions for how I think the championship will finish at the end of the season, basically. So of course we did one of these videos at the start of the season. You guys really seem to enjoy that. I've also done a video not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, of me reacting to my predictions from the start of the season. So if you would like to see that video, I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. But today, what we are here to do, we're here to make our predictions for what I think will happen, basically, for the end of the season. And what I'd love to know from you guys is what do you basically think will happen. And at the end of the season, I'll also be reacting to this video, and I'll also be reacting to some of the comments in the comments down below on this video, guys. So if any of you get any of them right or anything like that, I'll be reacting to them at the end of the season as well. So I think this could be a pretty interesting video. So like I said, guys, this is all going to be in my opinion, so please don't get offended if I say your team might do a bit worse than you're currently doing, or another team might do better or anything like that. Literally, this is all in my opinion, and literally this is the championship, probably the most unpredictable league in world football, so literally anything can happen from now till the end of the season. And what I'm also going to do, guys, I'm going to leave a poll in the description down below, and basically what that is, it's going to feature all the teams which are currently in the playoffs, and I want you guys to vote on who do you think is most likely to get promotion out of the 4 teams who are currently in a playoff spot, so that being Huddersfield, Reading, Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday. Out of those 4 clubs, who do you think is most likely to get promotion? Of course, another team could sneak into there, or maybe Brighton or Newcastle could drop down into the playoffs, but out of those sides, who do you think is most likely to get promotion? I'd be very interested to know. So guys, on screen now, I'll show you how the championship table is currently shaping up. So as we can see, from the start of the season, we've got a couple of shocks in there, but this is how the championship table is currently looking. Of course, we currently have Newcastle and Brighton being our top 2, and in the bottom 3, we currently have our Rotherham, Blackburn and Wigan. So from you guys, what I'd love to know, if you don't have time to make all the predictions, what I really want to know from you guys is, first of all, where do you think your club will finish at the end of the season? Who do you think will make the top 6 and get promoted? And who do you think will be in the bottom 3 and relegated? I'd be very interested to know. So coming in at 24th, guys, rock bottom of the table. This one's going to be no surprise really to anyone, I'm sure. I'm going to put Rotherham in there. I just don't see them getting anywhere above that really. But in all fairness to Rotherham, I thought in 2017 they showed a bit of an improvement really since how they were doing at the start of the season. But despite that, I just think everyone else will be a bit too strong for them. And then coming in at 23rd place, this may be a little bit of a shock to some of you guys. I'm actually going to go ahead and put Burton Albion. I think at this point in time, they're not in the best run of form, and at the start of the season, the thing keeping them just above the relegation zone was their home form. Even lately, that doesn't seem to have been such a great attribute for Burton. Their home form seems to have deteriorated a little bit as well, but I'd say the one thing Burton do have over other teams in and around the relegation zone is a real team spirit and fight and desire to go ahead and get out of it. The only thing I question with this Burton side is the quality compared to the other teams around them. So honestly, I would love to see Burton stay up, but I think they might just go down this season. And then in the last relegation spot, guys, this was a really close one, and honestly, there was quite a few teams I considered for this one, but I'm actually going to go ahead and put Wigan Athletic now, where when Warren Joyce did come into the Wigan job, we saw a little bit of a resurgence around Wigan, really. I'm not going to deny that, but I just feel like with other teams around them, they might have a bit more quality than this Wigan side. I mean, if Omar Bogle's goals are able to keep Wigan up, absolutely fair play to them, and me predicting Wigan to go down is probably going to come back to bite me, with Michael Preston then playing them at the weekend, but I just think they may not have enough to survive this league. And then coming in at 21st place, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict for Blackburn Rovers. I really do think that they'll be, I think this could go down to goal difference, in all honesty, between Wigan and Blackburn are the 2 sides which I think, honestly, I'd be very surprised if both of them stay up. I'd be very surprised indeed if both of them managed to stay up, and I wouldn't really be too surprised if both of them went down though. But out of these 2 sides, I just think Blackburn have a slight edge over this Wigan side. I think in terms of their squad, man for man, I just think some of the performances which Blackburn have put in for the majority of the season haven't really been reflected in their results. I don't think their performances have been absolutely as dire as some of their results have suggested, but I think they may just survive. Then coming into 20th, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Nottingham Forest. So that's a bit lower than they currently are in the table. The reason I'm going to put Forest there is because obviously we all know the trouble troubles that Forest have had this season with the ownership and everything like that. We've seen some of their top players leave this season as well, and it's a really funny one with Forest. They've been very inconsistent for large majorities of the season. Of course, they have recently brought in players like Ross McCormack into the squad, and Zach Clough as well, players like that. I just feel like towards the end of the season, this side could go on a bit of a bad run. I don't really think the mentality is right at that club, and so for that reason, I think they'll slip down the table a little bit. Then going into 19th, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Bristol City. Now, honestly, I can't really believe that Bristol City have got themselves into this situation. You know, at the start of the season, I was predicting Bristol City to be in and around the playoffs, and with the squad that they've got, that is quite feasible in my opinion. But of course, they went on that awful run. Still are really not on a great run of form, Bristol City, but I think they should have enough to survive. I would be very surprised if they did go down, but honestly, I don't see them finishing much higher than 19th. Then in 18th, guys, maybe a team which will shock a couple of you guys, which I'm predicting to finish here. I'm actually going to go ahead and predict Birmingham to finish in 18th, guys. Now, in mid-table, I think mid-table is probably the hardest region to actually predict, because from anywhere from like 18th to up and around 12th, any of these teams can finish in any order. But the reason I'm putting Birmingham in 18th in such a low place, really, for a club like Birmingham, I feel like under Zola, since Zola's come in, you know, when you expect a new manager to come in, you can understand when things start slowly. But since Zola's come in, I'm not seeing an improvement from the first game he managed to his most recent game. And I think because of that sort of stagnation and decline that Birmingham have seen recently, I think they will continue to slip down the table. And I think they just need to regroup in the summer, really. I don't think anything will be achievable this season for them. And then into 17th, guys, I'm going to predict QPR to finish in this spot. Once again, another really inconsistent side for the majority of this season, really. At one point in time in the season, QPR were being spoken about in terms of relegation candidates, and of course they are still within that bracket. But I think looking over their squad compared to some of the teams which I'm predicting to finish in the bottom three, I don't think they'll go down. I think that players like Alex Smithies in goal, I think his quality and stuff like that, other players they've got dotted around the pitch, will be enough to survive QPR this season. But overall, quite a disappointing one. I'm predicting 17th. 16th, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa are at this point in time seemingly in free fall, really. They're on a really bad run of form, and it's a difficult one, really, because when Steve Bruce came into the Aston Villa job, there was quite a lot of promise around Aston Villa and quite a few hopes of actually making the playoffs. But in 2017, their form has taken a serious, 360, 180 turn. It's just been absolutely awful for Aston Villa in 2017. Even Jonathan Kodjia coming back into the side recently hasn't really seemed to be enough for them. But I don't see them finishing much lower than 16th. But other than that, honestly, I don't see them finishing much higher either. Then in 15th, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Wolves to finish in 15th. So at this point in time, Wolves aren't on the best run of form, but I do feel like with Paul Lambert and what he's been able to achieve in some performances from this Wolves side, at one point in time, it looked like Paul Lambert had got the formula spot on for Wolves. They went on a nice little bit of an unbeaten streak at one point in time in the season. Since then, they've gone down a little bit. They seem to have stagnated, but I think that 15th is a reasonable finish for Wolves. And in 14th, I'm going to go ahead and predict Brentford to finish in 14th. Honestly, I could see Brentford finishing a little bit lower. I know their performance at the weekend was very disappointing, but in terms of Brentford, of course, they lost Scott Hogan, their top scorer. I do feel like that may be a bit of a blessing in disguise in terms of getting the best out of your other players, because I don't know, would you call Brentford a one-man team with Scott Hogan earlier on in the season? I think that may be a fair assessment of them, but I think now Scott Hogan has gone, some of your other players will need to step up, and I'd say 14th is a reasonable finish. Then for 13th, guys, we have probably the most inconsistent side in the Championship. I'm going to go ahead and predict Ipswich to finish in 13th. Now, at this point in time, Ipswich are actually on a very nice run of form, and it wasn't too long ago, really, since we were speaking about Ipswich maybe being dragged into a relegation scrap. I know a lot of Ipswich fans have been very frustrated with Mick McCarthy this season, but with the recent form of players like Tom Lawrence going forward for Ipswich and you seeming to be quite tight at the back at this point in time, I think 13th is a reasonable finish. And then into 12th, I'm going to go ahead and predict Barnsley. Now, Barnsley have probably been one of the underdogs of the season, in my opinion, and probably have been one of the best performers, to come up from League One and to be as high as they have been at this point in time in the season. Really, realistically, they could still be challenging for the playoffs, and even despite losing their two best players in Sam Winnell and Cunha Hurahan, they're still up there in the table. They're still grinding out these performances, and I see them dropping a little bit lower than they currently are in the table. The reason I say that is because I think it's difficult for a side like Barnsley to come up with. I don't think they've got the biggest squad, and I think it's difficult to carry that out for an entire season, so I think they'll slip just a bit further down the table, but 12th still is a very good finish. And then to 11th, guys, we have Cardiff City. Now, what a season Cardiff have had, from considering where they were not too long ago. You know, only 2 or 3 months ago, they were down in the relegation zone, and to turn it around, I'm actually going to predict them to finish in 11th this season. I think what Neil Warnock has been able to do with this Cardiff side, he's made them into a side which are very hard to beat, really, a very sturdy side, and probably that stereotypical Neil Warnock side, so I'm going to go ahead and predict them to finish in 11th. And then to finish in 10th, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Michael Preston North End. I do feel like we're just that 1 or 2 players short of having a serious challenge to go ahead and get into the playoffs, but I do think that under Simon Grayson, we are going in the right direction, and well, I'd probably take 10th for this season. I think that's a very decent finish, you know, for our second season back in the Championship, to be doing this well and to be above how many other teams we are who have spent, you know, so much more money than we have. I think 10th's a good finish for us. Then in 9th position, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Derby County. Now, I'd say probably in December, early January, I was actually predicting Derby to go ahead and finish in the playoffs. I just think that at one point in time, you know, Tom Ince was on absolute fire for Derby, and everything just seemed to be going their way. You know, Darren Bent was hitting form, the defence seemed to be solid, but since then, they just seem to have bottled it again, really. I mean, it's a stereotypical thing with Derby now that we've really come to expect from this Derby side, which they just, towards the end of the season, they just always seem to have a collapse. Of course, they weren't helped by their form earlier in this season, but honestly, I'd be surprised if they made the playoffs now. And then to a team I'm going to predict to finish in 8th place. This may be a little bit of a surprise to some of you guys. I'm actually going to go ahead and predict Norwich. Now, at this point in time in the season, Norwich are on a fantastic run of form, and honestly, if they are able to keep this form up from now until the end of the season, I honestly could see them sneaking into that 6th spot and getting into the playoffs. The only thing which is niggling away at me at the back of my mind is we've already seen this Norwich side collapse once in the season, and we've already seen, you know, how bad they actually have been at one point in the season, so it's just occurring to me that that collapse could happen as well towards the end of the season, you know, with like 5 games to go or something like that. Mentally, I question this Norwich side a little bit mentally, and Alex Neil, I know, had a really funny season this season, Alex Neil, I think it's fair to say, but I'm really unsure with Norwich. I'm predicting them to finish in 8th. Then to finish in 7th, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Fulham, and I actually think that Fulham will be incredibly close to finishing in the playoffs come the end of the season, and Fulham have been a team which has really surprised me. You know, I think last season Fulham finished around 19th or 20th or something crazy like that, so to go ahead and turn it around and to be chasing the playoffs like they are this season really has been an attribute to, you know, their team and their manager, but I feel like they might just miss out on the playoffs. I just think that other teams in and around the top 6 may just have that little bit more quality than Fulham and that bit more consistency than Fulham to go ahead and get into the top 6. But with players like Aluko, Tom Kearney and some of their other starlets, I've been really impressed with Fulham. And now, guys, this is where it gets really interesting. So first of all, in 6th place, I'm going to go ahead and predict Sheffield Wednesday. So of course, this is where Sheffield Wednesday are currently in the table, and I do fancy them to finish in 6th. However, I think they may just scrape it. But I'm literally talking, I think this will go down to goal difference for how tight Fulham will be to actually get into Sheffield Wednesday, and Norwich and Derby as well, you know, perhaps. But I feel like Sheffield Wednesday may just scrape it. For large majorities of the season, they have been very inconsistent, but I just feel like with the strike force they have, the amount of options they have in pretty much every area of the pitch, they should be getting into the playoffs. And then 5th place, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Reading to finish in 5th place. Now, I actually think that the next month could either make or break Reading's season, really. The amount of top teams that Reading are facing really is staggering, really, to see, and I think in the next 2 games, you know, they're facing 2 of the top 6, so it's going to be a really interesting one for Reading. I fancy them to come in 5th. And then into 4th, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Leeds United, and honestly, I am really looking forward to watching the playoffs come the end of the season, guys, because we have a lot of big teams in here, and a lot of teams which are capable of playing some very decent football indeed. But Leeds United have been a team which has really impressed me so far this season. I think probably one of the more balanced sides, actually, in the playoffs, going from defence to attack. I think they've got their formula very right, and I think that if Chris Wood is able to hit his top form, you know, at this point in time going towards the end of the season, they could even be higher than 4th. And then coming in at 3rd place, guys, I'm going to predict them to just miss out on automatic promotion, and once again, I literally think that this one could come down to goal difference as well. I'm going to go ahead and predict Huddersfield. Definitely been one of the dark horses this season, you know, from what a lot of people were predicting them to do at the start of the season. You know, a lot of people were talking about Huddersfield in terms of relegation, but Huddersfield have been been absolutely outstanding. What David Wagner has been able to get out of the squad has been absolutely staggering, and like I say, I fancy them to just miss out on automatic promotion. And then just sneaking into automatic promotion, I am going to go ahead and predict Brighton, and honestly, if Brighton were going to finish in third this season as well as last season, you know, and bottle it towards the last day of the season, that would be absolutely crazy in my opinion. But I just think that this Brighton side will have enough to hold off Huddersfield come the last day of the season. I just think that they'll have that extra bit of quality, and I have been very impressed with Brighton, you know, for large majorities of the season. I'm not going to take anything away from them. I just question mentally if this side is all there. And then to go ahead and win the championship, guys, I'm going to go ahead and predict Newcastle United. I'm sure this one isn't really a surprise to too many people. I'm sure the majority of people will be predicting Newcastle to go ahead and win the championship. Honestly, if they weren't going to go on and win the championship, I'd be very surprised actually, but with the squad they've got, I think they should be doing it. I think Brighton and Huddersfield could actually take Newcastle a lot closer than a lot of people are anticipating, but come the end of the season, I'm fancying them for it. So there you have it, guys. There are my predictions for what I think the championship table will shape up like come the end of the season. So, of course, I could be completely wrong, and honestly, I could get none of these predictions correct, but hopefully I get a couple of them right. But in terms of who I think will get promoted from the playoffs, I honestly think you could roll the dice. I don't think you can call it. I think when it comes to the playoffs, I think for large majorities of it, the best side usually doesn't actually win the playoffs. It comes down to luck a lot of the time and injuries and stuff like that. Players hitting form at certain points in time. But if I had to call it now, oh, it's a difficult one. I'm going to go ahead and back Leeds United for promotion. That's who I'm going to back at this point in time. But honestly, any of them could go on and win it. So there you have it, guys. There are my predictions for the end of the season, basically, for how the championship, I think, will shape up at the end of the season, guys. So like I said at the start of the video, I would love to know your guys' opinion. So make sure you do get your predictions in the comments down below. I'd be very interested to know what you guys had to say about it. As well as that, make sure you go ahead and vote in the straw poll for who you think would win out of those four teams who are currently in the playoffs, guys. But that will now wrap it up for this video. So tomorrow, guys, will be when my score predictions come out for the next week of championship fixtures. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you go ahead and drop me a follow on Twitter, as I always tweet before I upload the video. Therefore, you'll never miss a video ever again, guys. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.